Hello, 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 sisters. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Soul Talks. Live your Dharma. This is about you and your Dharma. This is Kenlyn Colleen, and I'm excited to bring you the message for today. We're going to dive into Gene Key 63. It's March 5th on this transmission, and the sun is shining its light on Gene Key 63. This is a very mental energy. So it's good that we talk about it because there's so much mental energy in our collective consciousness that it can deeply weigh us down. It can cause us self-doubt. It can cause us tons of anxiety. And it can really take us off the track of what we know to be true. So here's the thing I'm going to start with. I'm going to start with the end first, and then I'm going to welcome all of you for coming, just giving everyone a chance to arrive. And those of you who are joining the replay, welcome. So Einstein said that it's more important to have imagination than to know something. So you can already tell where we're going to be going. There's a biblical phrase that said, know the truth and the truth will set you free. So you have to enter the gate of mysticism through the pathway of the mystic to know the truth, capital T. So that's where we're going to end, and let me begin with that. So just welcoming those of you who are showing up on this Sunday of March. I'm going to presence a few things, even though I'm not going to talk about them. And that is just what's happening, because it's actually a really good context for talking about our minds and the mental pressure that we're feeling right now. So as you jump on, just take a deep breath and allow your shoulders to relax. Allow your heart space to relax. Allow your jaw to relax. Allow your neck, your back, just anywhere that there's tension and you're holding it, just bring your conscious awareness to it and allow it to relax. Because relaxation is going to be part of our way through. That's part of this mystical corridor to truth. Welcome, Vanessa. Yeah, so if you're here, let me know who you are. Where are you zooming in from, or where are you YouTubing in from? Put your city and your name and an emoji on how you're feeling. How are you feeling today? There's a lot. Like, right, I'm in Las Vegas right now, and there are wind gusts that are pretty strong. It's the second windy city. Chicago is known as the windy city, but I was like, no, is this the windy city? It's very windy. Things are getting stirred up. So if you're Vata in your constitution in Ayurveda, like I am, you really get affected by the wind. And so I'm using it as a metaphor for the winds of change. And that's our context. Tanja from Macedonia. So we have Paris and Macedonia. Who else is here? Let me know who else is here. All right. So this week is huge. We have a full moon coming up on March 7th. And then March 7th, we also have Saturn going into Pisces. And if you're on my mailing list later today, you're going to get our beautiful astrologer, Rosanna, has written a blog that we're going to send out to all of you. Patty is here from Ohio, and Jane. Hello, Jane, Claudia, London, Robin, New Mexico, Deanne, Michigan. You're feeling very much Saturn approaching Pisces. I know. Corey from Utah. Welcome. Tova from Copenhagen. I love our global community. I love the commitment that you all have to showing up every week. Those of you who are live, I love being here live with you. Thank you for the emojis too. It's fun to look at my screen with a bunch of hearts. And also for those of you joining on the replay, welcome wherever you are. Thank you for your commitment to hearing these teachings. You know, my intention for this is really to support you in walking through your life. We're in the winds of change. We are in massive change right now. Oh, you're welcome, Deanne. All right. Hi, Claudia's kids and hubby. That's right. It's a family gathering. So, as I was saying, March 7th, full moon in Virgo. It's a beautiful healing full moon, and it's also a time when what actions you step into are seeded for the future. There's so much auspiciousness to this time right now. So really be mindful about what you put your attention on and what actions you take. That's always true. But as the world speeds up, I notice that inside of our community and inside of my own body, it's just taken a moment to come back to center because the winds of change are swirling. And if I let it, I can get caught up in that swirl. How many know what I'm talking about? It's real. The pace of time has accelerated. We're just cramming way more into it. Way more is possible. We have much more access to technology that exposes us to information that Homo sapiens have never had before. So we are becoming a new species. We are becoming a light body, and that light body is etheric. It's fast, and so we want to get nimble at how to work with information and knowledge coming through technology so that it doesn't sweep us away and that we really stay connected to our animal self while we're on planet Earth, because Mother Earth is essential to who we are and how we live. And that's the full moon in Virgo, just bringing us down to our embodiment. We are ascending in a body. So it's not really about flying off. It's about being grounded. So that's what these teachings are here to support you in doing, in being. So what we focus on actually forms the world in which we live. And that comes to this teaching of Gene Key 63. It's mental. Some of you might have this lit up in your human design. You might have the gate or you might have the channel. Or some of you may not have anything in your crown. Like that's me, nothing, no gates, open and undefined. So I'm like an open channel when it comes to my mind, which means that I can get off on rabbit holes and I have to bring myself back. And so I'm going to point to the shadow and the gift of 63, knowing that I don't have that, but I've witnessed it in so many clients as well as people really close to me. And that's given me a particular view of how to see gate 63 or gene key 63. This is the logic gene key. This is the gene key of the mind. This is the gene key of the questioner. And in its highest frequency, it is the questioner. In its lowest frequency, it is the I was going to say the doubter, but doubt has, in the gene key world, doubt has two meanings to it. But really underneath the doubt, it's the skeptic. So you can feel that skeptical energy, cynical energy can be a byproduct of people who are in their minds in a narrow, rigid way. And that is certainly one of the shadows of Gene Key 63. And we're seeing that play out on the world stage. And one of the things that's important about 63 to note about the shadow of doubt is that it's a collective energy. It's not for you personally. So for those of you who struggle, and I think that might be all of us, even if we don't have this gate, we struggle with self-doubt. And so we're going to talk about some of the ways to handle this self-doubt because we really just don't understand the energy and the gift of doubt. So yeah, Patty says I'm 62.4. Alice, uh, many magical, seemingly impossible things occur in the rabbit hole realm. Thank you, CJ. Exactly. I love my interaction with CJ. That's awesome. Oh, Alicia. Oh, that's so great. It's Mika. Okay. Awesome. And Lori Grace from Boulder, Colorado. Beautiful. Alexis from Oakland. Christina from Finland. Yes, I remember our conversation. Great. Oh, sister, so great to have you here. All right. So, what I think is really important about 63 is that it's mental pressure. And we all experience this. There's no way that we can't, because it's part of the collective shadow to have this mental pressure. And the way that the mind handles mental pressure is that it seeks to know. And that in and of itself is okay and beautiful, can lead to beautiful results. I remember my sister saying, she's a naturopath, and she was saying, gosh, none of the things that I'm doing are working with my cancer patients. And I said, great. Use that dissatisfaction to go deeper into investigation to find out what works. So that's the highest expression of 63. It takes this doubt, this mental pressure to figure it out, and it harnesses it creatively. So investigate, ask questions. 63 is not about answers, it's about questions. So, in the highest expression, we can use this mental pressure to ask questions. And ultimately, as we're going to see when we follow the whole trajectory of the gene keys in 63, when we go through the pathway of inquiry to truth, to ultimate truth, the ultimate reality, we know that all questions disappear. And so that's where we're headed. But first, let's talk about, how did we get into this shadow band? Well, there's a few theories, and they're all theories. Like, nothing I'm saying is truth. And that's the thing about duality. Remember, Newtonian, everything is equal and opposite. So that's the nature of duality. So oftentimes what I'll say inside my containers, and whether it's leadership, whether it's business, whether it's inner circle, I say that I'm playing the game of this, because I'm not saying it's true. I'm just saying this is what I choose to take on as my reality, because we know that when we choose to take something on as our reality, it becomes our reality. Reality is really here for you to create. Let me say that again. Reality is really here for you to create. So we know that through particle physics, the observer has an effect on what gets observed, right? So there are waves, and they become particles when the observer observes that wave. I may not be saying that right for science, but we get that our observation, what we see, matters. So, we're always walking this yoga, because there are spiritual people who don't want to see anything except for love and light, and they don't want to go into the shadow. And we already know that that has to get integrated. We already know that the shadow has the gifts, and going into the shadow reveals the jewel of your awakening. So we're not talking about, oh, let's just create a reality around love and light. We're talking about ascending means descending. And then we open the portal. Once we have gone into our shadow, we open the portal to see the truth, capital T. So we get to hold, and this is really what 63 shows us, is that there's paradox everywhere. Right? The minute you say one thing, you can say the other thing about it. And so the awakened person gets to be the person who lives in paradox. And maybe that's why the Buddhists call it don't know mind. At the end of the day, you just don't know, because it's equal and it's opposite as well. And the truth lies in holding the paradox. And so our linear minds are not good at that. And certainly when we live on the shadow realm, in the shadow frequency, when we have not gone to our depths and inquired, when we've numbed out through food or television or alcohol or whatever your numb out thing is of the day, right? Whether it's working out or being really busy or attending to other people's needs, we don't really have a chance to inquire deeper, to contemplate, to sit with something, to know its essence. And that produces anxiety. And that mental pressure and anxiety doesn't go away. And so we live with a subconscious pattern that's called something is wrong, or something's wrong with me, or I'm alone. Those are the big stories underneath it. And we're trying to subconsciously, unconsciously solve for that problem. I call it solving for X. And the insidious nature of that is that X cannot be solved. So let's just breathe that in, and wherever we're holding tension in our body right now, we can relax, because the truth lives in relaxation. It lives in, I can just feel my whole body, right? Like my spine, my shoulders, my heart, my solar plexus, just letting go of the tension. Because that knowing is so constrictive. It needs to know because it's trying to solve for X. It's trying to solve that if I could solve for X, then I wouldn't feel this mental pressure that something's wrong with me, or I'm alone. And so to just know that that is not going to go away, that's just built into the shadow matrix. Now, the good news is that as we teach, inside of that shadow, you will find a new pathway. You will find the mystical doorway into truth, capital T. And so how do we do that? And the Gene Keys say we do that through inquiry. And that's not new. That's part of a lot of non-dual spiritual teachings teach inquiry. One of my favorite teachers is Byron Katie. I started working with her work. I stumbled upon it. I think it was maybe 2002 or 2003. I walked into a bookstore. I saw Loving What Is. I picked it up. I opened it. When you do that, you just open it randomly, you read something, and you're like, oh, that was totally meant for me. So I bought the book. And at the time, I had a belief. And so here we go with Gene Key 63. I had an opinion. I had a belief. I had what I would call like a certainty, because Gene Key 63 is about the mental pressure to create certainty, because we are so afraid of the unknown. And we can see this playing out in religions. We can see this playing out in science, that this is how it is. This is how it is. Follow me and you'll be okay. Follow these rules and you'll be okay. What about the person who does all the right things in their health and they still get cancer? And then what we do is we blame them even further. Well, but you didn't do this one thing. Right? That's the world of knowing. And we all want certainty, because nobody wants to get cancer. So we want certainty. We want to lock it down. And locking it down means that we know something, that we have a belief about something, we have an opinion about something. And when I picked up Loving What Is that day, I had an opinion that the man that I was dating was selfish. It was a very strong opinion. It was validated by his ex-wife. But I really felt like, wow, he is selfish. And you may or may not be, but that's how the world occurred to me, right? So I pick up this book and I bring it home and I download the worksheets, Loving What Is. For Loving What Is, it's called thework.com, and it was Judge Your Neighbor worksheet. And the inquiry process begins with, is it true? And I'm like, yep, totally true. Right? And you have to write these down or say it out loud, because if you do it just quietly in your mind is super slippery. It is made to confirm itself. So writing it down is a little bit like looking at your numbers in your accounting. It's just it doesn't lie. You can't get away from the truth of the numbers. So, is it true? I'm like, yep, totally he's selfish. Can I absolutely know that he's selfish? Oh, no, I cannot absolutely know that. How can I absolutely know anything? Right? How do I feel when I think the thought he's selfish? I feel agitated, irritated, blaming, distant, not connected. And so, who would I be if I lived on a planet and I couldn't even think the thought he is selfish? And I had to breathe into that one, I had to really breathe into that. Who would I be if I didn't believe that thought? And then there comes, like, out of that darkness, out of that fertile void of that question, starts to come, oh, something new that's possible. And then it's a turnaround. I am selfish. Yeah, because I want him to be the way I want him to be. I don't want him to be selfish. I'm selfish in wanting him to not be selfish. Okay. Yeah, it would work better for me if he weren't selfish. That's super true. Or the turnaround, he's not selfish. I can see the ways that he's not selfish. Yeah. So, what that work did, that's called inquiry. And that's her process. It's kind of Socratic method. So I liked it I was an attorney at the time, and I just loved, having a Socratic method just to go to. And I ended up having a folder about this thick of worksheets. And I would just rip out a worksheet every time I got triggered. And it was beautiful because I don't think that in this instance, like, I had big breakthroughs in other ways of ahas, of seeing the matrix. But in this instance of that person being selfish, I never had a big breakthrough. I simply dropped that belief. And I don't even know how I dropped the belief. I didn't try to drop the belief. I just worked with it every single time. And it seemed repetitive that I kept meeting myself over and over, because that thing, like 63, doesn't want to let go. It is like a bulldog that's got a hold of that, chew toy, and you're on the other end playing tug of war. It's just not going to let go. It's not. You're going to let go before that dog lets go. And that's how that 63 is. It's not going to let go easily. So I just kept meeting it and gently meeting it and meeting it again. And here we are again. Yep, he's selfish. Can I know it's true? No. Over and over and over until I have a 1-inch thick of a file folder filled with my thoughts about him. But ultimately, it becomes my liberation, because I'm the one disturbed about it. And do you think my disturbance is going to cause something over there? It might. It might, or it might cause another reaction over there, or it might just cause distance over there. So what I found is that over time, that dropped. And then over time, I wasn't his girlfriend anymore. And so life takes care of life, right? I love that Muji quote. Muji says, life takes care of life. And that's really taught me, and it still teaches me to this day. I'm in the house of my dad and his family, and I have a lot of opinions on the foods they eat and the habits and practices, and nobody wants them. Right? Nobody wants those opinions. And it's really been like, wow, I've had to be with my thoughts and beliefs about something And, Byron Katie has said before, like, your thoughts and beliefs about someone else are for you. They're for you. And so I just see them as, oh, yeah, that's the way I want to live. Oh, yeah, that's the way I want to eat. Oh, yeah, those are the practices I want to have. And it is a discipline. And as Saturn moves into Pisces, coming up on the full moon, March 7th, we're feeling a sea change. And this is where we get to upgrade our spirituality. Many of you have been doing these kinds of practices. Many of you have done other practices or sat in inquiry in other ways. Many of you have touched upon non-dual reality. I believe that we're going into a time where that's going to get seated in us, like it's been seated. It's going to be a reality for us. I think for me, that's the context I'm creating with Saturn in Pisces, that this is my time to really anchor the teachings, to live the teachings, to know them in my bones. And that's, something Byron Katie said about the work. She's like, at some point it becomes alive in you. And I noticed I stopped filling out worksheets because there was already an automatic mechanism. I trained myself to, as soon as I said something, to be like, is that true? Well, not really. That's my opinion. That's my belief. That's the thought I have. I get to choose to keep it and make it a part of my context, or I get to choose to let it go. And so inside of like my family dynamic, I'm choosing to let it go because I don't want other people, I don't want a barrier between me and other people and my love for them. I've chosen that my love is greater than even what they eat. And for me, that's hard because I associate a lot of beliefs around what you put into your body and the health that you're going to experience and all the things. I have a whole line of thought around that. And I practice those lines of thought. And I'm available if someone wants to talk to me about that. And, doing the work of the gene keys, doing the work of human design, those are projected channels. Whether you're a manifestor or a manifesting generator or a generator, it does not matter. That channel, if you have the channel of perfection, for example, or even the channel of leadership, even the channel of storytelling, which I have all three, those are all projected channels. So it wouldn't matter if I was a manifestor. It's all invitation. I have to be invited to do all those things. So that's why I do what I do. That's why I do this, because I get to focus this gift that I have of seeing patterns, of seeing what's not working and how to fix it. I get to focus that with people who want it. And I get to just be love with the people who don't. And really, at the end of the day, why do I want people to take care of themselves and eat the right things? At the end of the day, it's because I don't want to feel the pain when they go. So I have a matrix in my head called, if you do all these right things, you will not die prematurely. And maybe I even believe you won't die at all. Like that's the fiction that we beautiful humans are making because that piece is so terrifying. So what I'm doing now in my life is, the more that I am visiting the territory of death, and what does that mean? That means letting go. I'm just kind of see your hands and a knot right there and just let it go. The more that we visit the territory of letting go, that's death, the better we are at just being with our feelings, being with that beautiful grief. And there's the paradox right now. It's both beautiful and terrifying. It's really the nature of the word awe. Awe to me has like beauty on steroids with this like hint of terror because it's so big. It's so much bigger than the identity. It's terrifying to the ego identity because it's so big. And that's the nature of what we already know. Our every cell in our body already knows that. It comes from that. It is that. And so as we move into truth through inquiry, when we ask enough questions and we sit with the silence after asking the question, when we have dropped the need to know and to form a package around it so that we can be certain, and that's what's happening, right? We're seeing a rise in certain religions, not a rise in mysticism too, but also a rise in returning back to religion, because in uncertain times, people want certainty. I even was on a summit, an astrology summit, just on the very first day with all the panel of all the guests, and one woman said that people are returning to a more fundamental Christianity because, not a mystical, but more fundamental, because they want certainty, and she was calling out the sort of new age movement as being nihilistic. And I get that. And I'm part of wisdom traditions, mystical wisdom traditions like Hinduism and Buddhism, and the esoteric teachings of the Gene Keys, which combine all these mystical traditions, the Gnostic Gospels, the I Ching, the Tao Te Ching, all of these mystical branches, the Kabbalah, that came out of either philosophy or religion, that has a different way of being with uncertainty. In fact, there's only the ground of being is only found inside ourselves. That we're not looking for uncertainty out here. And I'm not saying make your life chaotic and crazy. I have lived like that too, but I'm saying that even in a stable life, there's still uncertainty, a so-called stable life, right? Because you don't know when you're going to die. You don't know when other people are going to die. You don't know what's going to happen next. You don't know if the economy is going to crash. You don't know if you're going to be okay. You don't know if you're going to lose your house. You don't know if you're going to get sick. You don't know. And there's no religion and no scientific dogma that's going to have you know. Is there? So if we can sit in our eternal selves and know who and what we really are, then we're powerfully sitting in the change of form. And we're powerfully being with what's appearing now. I mean, Byron Katie had that thing, is like, this is appearing now. It's just appearing now. And so when Saturn goes into Pisces, what I'm creating as a context and as a truth is that I get to be more resolved, stronger in that knowing that who and what I really am can weather any storm. And so doubt, when it turns in on itself, it becomes self-doubt. When it turns on others, it becomes projections and you become suspicious. But when used in service, it inquires. And eventually it inquires so much that the one inquiring disappears. And what does that mean? It means that you see through the matrix, that there's no personal you, that you and everything else are one thing. So I remember in 2005, I went to Amsterdam to see a man called Tony Parsons, and he was a non-dual teacher. I was really like taken with non-dual teaching in 2004 or 5, probably because of Byron Katie. And the Gene Keys, every city is really a non-dual teaching. Somehow it has a flavor of the pathway for that particular frequency to see the truth, the no thing. And Tony Parsons was saying that just like he was walking on the grass, what happened to him is he was walking through Hyde Park and he just started to become deeply present with his foot touching the grass. And that presence merged and he woke up and he saw the matrix. He saw through the matrix. He saw who and what he really was. And the notion of a personal identity dropped away. And when I was sitting in his lectures, which is, it dawned on me why they weren't even lectures. I don't even like, he's like, I can't, everything I say is not it. I can only point to it. And that's the thing about the truth. You can't, like the Tao even starts off, the Tao that's written is not the Tao. And so when I sat there and I listened to other people talk about how they were never born and they'll never die, I knew they didn't believe it. I knew that that was Gene Key 63 going mental. They understood the mental concept of no identity, but they had not the experience, the embodiment. And when we move to truth, capital T, truth destroys the mental concept. And truth just is. And what we see is that truth always is, always was, is always here in everything. And that's why Tony Parsons called it the open secret. It's right here underneath all of our noses. And so truth is not to be named. It is not to be talked about. It can be pointed to. I'll say one last thing, and that was when I went to India and I met the Dalai Lama. It was a beautiful, there was 9 of us and we had a private meeting with His Holiness, and I could feel the beauty of that man. And I sat there and looked at him and I just thought about everything he had experienced in Tibet and fleeing Tibet and being here and being a celebrity spiritual figure and everything. I just looked at him like this is that man. And then I left, and about 9 months later, I watched one of his, a film about him. It's called Tibet, Cry of the Snow Lion. And it was about the monks and when the Chinese invaded Tibet. And it was in that moment that I believe I received darshan. So it wasn't in his presence. It was watching the movie. And I understood in a moment truth. I understood in a moment, like all the teachings. I cannot articulate them, but I understood in the moment all the teachings. Reggie Ray said that about his teacher, Trungpa Rinpoche. He said he walked into a room with 400 people and he understood the teachings of Trungpa. That's truth. That's the illumination. The programming partner 64 is illumination. And it trumps 63. 63 is this logical pathway that bows ultimately to illumination. Because truth cannot be spoken. Truth cannot be written down. Truth can be experienced in a flash of illumination. And so as we walk through these intense times, the winds of change, and this Saturn going into Pisces, the first major change. Then we have Pluto going into Aquarius on March 23rd. We have the equinox on the 21st, the beginning of the astrological new year, like beginnings like humanity has never, ever had. And so we are walking collectively into uncertainty. And you better believe that people will use their logical mind and their knowing to comfort them in their fear. So as you, as a light worker, as an awakened person, if you know that and can see that, and you know that and have met that in yourself, then we can hold deep space and a deep healing frequency and a deep frequency of love for those who are doing the best they can with the experience of fear and uncertainty. This is where our work becomes, on ourselves, becomes our service. So I'm going to end here. Thank you for being with me. I'm going to check out some of your comments. Yeah, CJ says, Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate. That's right. We are waking up from the matrix, and the way we wake up is through inquiry, through observing our minds, observing our thoughts, observing the way that we have to have things. And allowing the space for the illumination to come through. So we're going to pop on next. We now are not calling it the Razor's Edge anymore. I feel like that is complete. And we're calling it soul activations, sisterhood sessions, and those are happening afterwards. And we get to work even deeper and more personally with the work of Byron Katie and the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet. Yeah, we must hold space for those who are still in the materialistic world. Yeah. I mean, we get to bring heaven on earth. So what if we live and move and have our being in a way that reflects an ineffable joy and a deep love? And it takes something. There's a lot to unpack to get there. It's always there, but it's like a bunch of things packed on it, and we get to unpack it. We get to meet ourselves over and over and over. And that allows us to meet others. All right, let me see if there's anything else. Well, I think the other thing is just when you feel that pressure, that evolutionary pressure of doubt, turn it into creativity. If you have this, particularly if you have this gene key or this gate in human design, turn it into creativity. This is turn it into finding a cure for cancer, turn it into finding a way to clean the water, or whatever your beef is. Turn that beautiful mind of yours into creativity, into service. Point it in that direction. All right. And then the last thing, Richard Rudd ended with this, and I thought it was really beautiful. And so I'll end with this. I started with this as well, is that he said, any way we relax and we soften, we contribute to this field of truth, the awareness of the field of truth. So let's just end by, again, relaxing and softening and knowing that we're really held. We're held by earth. We're held by a reality that we're all one. Thank you for joining. And I look forward to seeing the Evolving Sisters on our sisterhood activation coming up in just 15 minutes. Lots of love.